You may not see their name pop up on your phone. You may not hear their voice, their laughter, or even their breath near you anymore, but make no mistake. When an avoidant is checking on you in silence, something sacred is happening beneath the surface. They are watching not out of curiosity, but out of conflict, because deep inside them lives a part that loves deeply, but fears losing itself in love. You see, avoidants are not heartless. They are protectors of their own pain. They learned that closeness once cost them freedom, safety, and peace. So now connection feels dangerous, even when it's the very thing their soul is starving for. So, when they check on you quietly, scroll through your photos, revisit your words, ask mutual friends how you're doing, they, reaching out through the only bridge they trust, distance, silence is their language of safety. But that silence doesn't mean you were forgotten. It means you mattered enough to stay in their mind, even when their heart couldn't handle proximity. Now, I want you to think about this. Your reaction to their silence defines your power, because this is not about what they're doing. This is about what you are becoming. You can choose to chase, or you can choose to stand still in peace. You can choose to question your worth, or you can rise into it. You can try to pull them back into your arms, or you can become so radiant that they can't help but feel your energy wherever they go. The truth is, energy never lies. You can feel when someone still thinks of you, when someone still checks, still wonders, still remembers what it felt like to be seen by you. That invisible thread between you is real, but it only grows stronger when you stop trying to tug on it and start living in your power, because the moment you let go, you stop vibrating at the level of fear and start vibrating at the level of freedom. And freedom is magnetic. Freedom makes them feel safe again. Freedom tells their heart, you can come closer. You won't drown this time. Maybe they'll never admit it. Maybe they'll never send that message. But somewhere behind that silence, they are learning. Learning how to love without losing themselves, how to miss without running, how to care without controlling. And you are learning how to hold space without begging for presence. You are learning divine patience, the art of allowing love to unfold in its own time. Because the soul doesn't rush what's sacred. So if they are checking on you in silence, let it remind you. Your energy still matters. Your presence was felt. Your love made a mark. And even if they never say it, they are still orbiting your light, waiting for the day they can stand close to it without fear. Don't collapse in their absence. Expand. Don't chase what's running. Become what's still. Because one day, when their silence turns into healing, they'll find that the peace they were searching for in the distance was always reflected in you. Keep shining, keep standing, keep loving with strength. Because that's how transformation happens. One awakened heart at a time. The silent observation is one of the most misunderstood behaviors of the avoidant. When they step back, when they stop calling or texting, many assume it's because they no longer care. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Their silence isn't absence, it's control. It's how they manage the storm of emotions that connection awakens in them. Deep down, they feel things intensely, perhaps more than the average person, but that depth terrifies them. So instead of expressing what they feel, they retreat into observation. They watch you quietly from a distance. They scroll through your social media, replay your words in their mind, or linger on the memory of your energy. It's their way of staying close while protecting themselves from being overwhelmed. In their world, watching from afar feels safer than reaching out. It gives them the illusion of connection without the vulnerability of it. They can check in, see that you're doing well, and feel that flicker of relief without having to risk rejection, intimacy, or emotional exposure. The avoidance mind tells them, if I can still see them, still know they're okay, I haven't lost them completely. So they hover in the background, convincing themselves they're detached, when in truth, they're deeply entangled. They're still tied to your energy, just unwilling to admit it out loud. This silent observation reveals the paradox of the avoidant heart. They crave closeness but fear the cost. They want to feel safe, but intimacy has never felt safe to them. So they compromise, they observe, they keep tabs, they try to manage their emotions by staying hidden while keeping you within reach. It's their form of self-regulation. But it's also a cry for safety. They don't yet know how to voice. Every quiet glance, every unseen scroll, every unspoken curiosity is their way of saying, I still care. I just don't know how to care without losing myself. For the person on the receiving end, this can feel confusing, even painful. You may sense their presence but see no action. You may feel their energy, but hear no words. It's like they're there, and not there at the same time. And yet, that's exactly what defines their internal struggle. They're trying to balance two competing instincts: the desire for love and the need for safety. Watching you gives them a sense of control over something they cannot otherwise manage emotionally. In moments of silence, they might find themselves replaying shared conversations, wondering if you've moved on, trying to read between the lines of your posts or your progress. Every small detail becomes a way of staying connected without crossing their own emotional boundaries. The avoidant doesn't check on you to invade your world. They do it to reassure their own. It's a quiet form of intimacy built not on words, but on watchfulness. This pattern, while subtle, holds deep meaning. It shows that you've impacted them in ways that transcend their defenses. Your presence awakens something in them that they can't easily silence. So they turn to observation, to feel close without feeling consumed. It's not rejection, it's regulation, it's their nervous system, trying to process connection without panic. If you could peek behind their guarded walls, you'd see that their silence isn't indifference, it's overload. They're thinking, reflecting, remembering. They may be looking for signs that it's safe to approach again, but more than anything, they're learning what closeness means to them. They're learning that connection doesn't always have to lead to pain, and while they may never admit it, their silent checking is proof that your energy still lives within them. It's the quiet acknowledgement that you mattered, that despite the distance, something in you reached a part of them that words could never touch. They're still there, watching, remembering, and, whether they realize it or not, being transformed by the very connection they tried to avoid. For the avoidant, emotional safety is everything. It matters more than connection, more than affection, and even more than love itself. To most people, expressing feelings feels natural. It's a way to bond, to build trust, to grow closer. But to an avoidant, emotional expression feels like exposure, like standing under a bright light with no armor on. They learned early in life that emotions can be dangerous, that being vulnerable can lead to being controlled, dismissed, or hurt. So when they start to care for someone, their system goes into overdrive. Every instinct screams, be careful, don't get too close, you could lose yourself. When you understand that emotional safety is their foundation, everything begins to make sense. Their silence, their distance, their hesitancy. It's not lack of care, it's protection. They protect their inner world the way someone guards a precious wound that never fully healed. Emotional expression to them isn't just talking about feelings, it's surrendering control, and that's terrifying. It's not that they don't want to share, it's that they've never learned how to do so without feeling like they're about to drown. So instead of expressing, they manage. Instead of speaking, they retreat. Instead of opening up, they observe. To the person on the other side, this can feel deeply confusing. You may think, if they care, why can't they just say it? But for the avoidant, saying it feels unsafe. Feeling deeply is overwhelming enough. Putting it into words amplifies the vulnerability. What looks like indifference is often emotional self-preservation. When they go quiet, they're not ignoring you. They're trying to find stability inside their own emotional chaos. Their love language isn't expression, it's endurance. The fact that they're still around in any capacity, even silently, is a sign that they care more than they can handle. They seek safety through control of their environment, their emotions, and their connections. When they sense too much intensity, their instinct is to pull back, not to punish you, but to regain emotional balance. Their nervous system equates closeness with potential danger, so they retreat to familiar ground, the safety of solitude. Yet in that solitude, they still think of you. They still feel, they still check on you from afar. It's their way of loving you within the limits of their comfort zone. To truly understand them, you must see their silence as a coping mechanism, not rejection. They need time to feel safe in the presence of emotion. They test whether the connection can hold without pressure. They wonder, can I feel this and still be okay? Can I love and not disappear? Their heart is at war with their conditioning. One part of them longs to be seen, while another part panics at the thought of being known. This tug-of-war keeps them quiet, yet it doesn't erase their feelings. Emotional safety, for them, means being able to exist as they are, without being pushed, without being demanded to change before they're ready. It means knowing they can love without losing freedom. It means knowing that closeness won't trap them, that vulnerability won't destroy them. When they feel that kind of safety, something shifts. Their walls soften, their communication opens up, their silence turns into slow trust. But this transformation can only happen when the space around them is patient, when love feels non-threatening, when they realize that connection doesn't have to equal chaos. So when they pull back, don't rush to fill the silence. When they stop expressing, don't assume the worst. That quiet distance is the space where they process, regulate, and heal. In that space, they are watching, feeling, and slowly convincing themselves that maybe, just maybe, this time it's safe to stay. Their way of seeking safety may look like withdrawal, but it's actually the first step toward courage, because every avoidance journey begins the same way. Learning that they can be close to love and still remain whole, even when there are no words, no messages, and no visible gestures. Energy continues to move between two people who have shared connection. This is what most people miss when dealing with an avoidant. The truth that communication isn't always verbal. It's energetic. When an avoidant pulls back, their silence doesn't mean they've stopped feeling. It means they've shifted the way they connect. They start to connect through energy, through memory, through the invisible thread that still ties them to you. Even from a distance, they can sense your presence. They might feel your emotional waves, the changes in your mood, or the growth in your energy. They feel it in ways they can't explain, and it draws them to check on you in silence, to make sure that connection still exists. Human connection operates beyond words. There is a frequency that two souls create when they meet deeply, and that frequency doesn't die when communication stops. It simply changes form. For the avoidant, this form feels safer. No confrontation, no expectations, no vulnerability, but that energetic bond still holds meaning. It's what keeps them checking your stories, looking at your photos, or asking about you indirectly. They might tell themselves they're just curious, but it's more than that. They're responding to that invisible energy that still links them to you. Avoidants are more intuitive than they realize. They feel deeply, even if they rarely express it. They sense when something within you shifts, when you've detached, when you've begun to heal, when you've stopped chasing. That's often when they come back around energetically, when they start to reappear, or when their silent checking becomes more frequent. It's because they feel the change. They feel the shift in your energy field, and that sensation awakens something inside them. Their ego may not understand it, but their spirit does. Energy doesn't need proximity to be felt. Think about how you can sense when someone is thinking about you, even from miles away, or how certain memories still hold emotional weight long after the moment has passed. That's the kind of connection we're talking about here. The avoidant, for all their fear of closeness, still feels that pull. They may not act on it consciously, but they live within it. It's the quiet reminder that what you both shared mattered, that it left an imprint deeper than logic can reach. The irony is that the more they try to detach, the more they feel this energetic tether. They may delete messages, avoid conversations, or bury themselves in distractions, but at random moments, they'll feel your presence. Maybe it's when a song plays, when they smell something familiar, or when they find themselves scrolling without realizing why. The mind says forget, but the energy says remember. This is how the silent connection lives on. It bypasses logic and speaks directly to the subconscious. When you focus on your own energy, on healing, on self-love, on peace, you unconsciously influence that connection too. The more grounded you become, the safer your energy feels to them. They may not know why, but they'll feel drawn toward you again. Energy always seeks balance. When one person rises in vibration, the other is compelled to adjust. So even if they're not reaching out, they're responding, they're observing, they're feeling the change. That's why presence matters more than pursuit. You don't need to chase someone who's energetically connected to you. You simply need to hold steady in your energy, calm, open, unattached. When you embody peace, they feel it. When you let go of need, they sense the release. And sometimes that alone is what gives them permission to come closer, even in silence. The truth is, love doesn't disappear when words stop. Energy remembers. Connection transcends logic. And for the avoidant, that's the one space where they can still love without fear. Quietly, invisibly, through energy that speaks louder than anything they could ever say out loud. Inside every avoidant lives a battle that no one sees. It's the conflict between the part of them that longs for connection and the part that fears it. This inner war defines their relationships, shaping every action, every silence, and every retreat. They don't pull away because they don't care. They pull away because caring too much threatens their sense of control. Love feels like both a dream and a danger. One side whispers, go closer, this feels good, while the other screams, run, this will destroy you. They live in that tension every day, torn between desire and defense. This conflict usually begins long before adulthood. Somewhere in their story, closeness became unsafe. Maybe love once came with conditions. Maybe their emotional needs were ignored or met with rejection. Over time, they learned to associate intimacy with loss. They decided that the only way to stay safe was to depend on themselves, to not need anyone too much. So now, even when they find someone who feels different, someone who feels safe, their old programming wakes up. The heart wants to open, but the nervous system goes into survival mode. It's like trying to drive with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. That's why the avoidance behavior often feels contradictory. One moment they lean in, soft and warm. The next they pull back and go cold. It's not manipulation, it's fear management. When they get too close, their system floods with anxiety. Their mind starts spinning stories. What if I lose myself again? What if I get hurt? What if they expect too much? Those fears become louder than their feelings, and so they retreat to silence to regain stability. The distance calms them, even if it hurts them too. That's how they survive emotional overwhelm, by withdrawing into solitude. But even in that distance, the conflict doesn't stop. They think about you more than they admit. They check on you not to control you, but to soothe the ache of separation. It's as if they're asking themselves, is it safe to feel this again? Will I be okay if I let them back in? That's why they hover silently around your energy. They're trying to reconcile both sides of themselves. One side seeks connection, the other fears being consumed by it. That tug of war keeps them stuck in cycles of closeness and withdrawal. This inner battle is exhausting for them. They want to trust, love, but don't know how. They crave intimacy but equate it with danger. They desire to express but default to control. Their silence becomes a compromise. I'll love from here, where it's safe. What they don't realize is that this very conflict is their invitation to heal. The pain they feel between those two forces isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that something deep inside is trying to change. For those who love an avoidant, patience becomes a spiritual practice. You can't force them to resolve their inner war before they're ready. You can only hold your ground in compassion. When you stay centered instead of chasing, when you respond instead of reacting, you show them a different kind of safety, the safety of consistency. Over time, your steadiness teaches them that connection doesn't have to mean chaos, that closeness can coexist with freedom. The avoidance journey isn't about learning to need someone. It's about learning that they can be loved and still remain whole. It's about realizing that love doesn't erase them. It expands them. When they finally feel safe enough to face their own heart, the wall between desire and fear begins to crumble. And in that moment, they don't just rediscover love, they rediscover themselves, because the real victory isn't in choosing connection over distance. It's in learning that the two can exist together without destroying their sense of self. When you grow in their absence, something powerful happens on an energetic level. Avoidants are not drawn back by words, persuasion, or emotional pleas. They are drawn back by transformation. When you evolve into peace, when you start living with purpose and confidence instead of waiting for them to return, your energy changes. You stop vibrating from need and start vibrating from strength. That shift doesn't go unnoticed. Even if they've gone silent, even if they've blocked you or distanced themselves, they can feel it. They may not be consciously aware of it, but something within them starts to stir. They sense that something about you is different, calmer, freer. That's what begins to magnetize them again. Avoidants are highly sensitive to energy, even though they hide behind logic and control. They may pretend not to care, but they can feel when your focus shifts. When you're clinging or anxious, it pushes them away. It reminds them of emotional pressure, of losing freedom. But when you stand tall in your own light, when you let go and focus on your personal growth, it disarms their defenses. Your energy becomes safe again. It no longer feels like a threat or a demand. It becomes something they can approach without fear. This is why personal evolution is the most powerful response to an avoidance distance. You don't chase them. You elevate yourself until the energy between you transforms. This kind of growth isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about reclaiming your power. It's realizing that love shouldn't cost you your peace. When you start investing that energy back into yourself, your goals, your health, your spiritual alignment, you unconsciously begin to heal the dynamic. You move from attachment to awareness, and that awareness sends out a frequency that the avoidant can't ignore. They may not reach out immediately, but they'll feel the change. They'll check on you more, often think about you more deeply, and wonder how you became so centered in your own being. It's important to understand that avoidants don't respond to words. They respond to energy. If you tell them you've changed but still act from desperation, they'll sense the inconsistency. But if your actions, emotions, and energy truly align with peace and confidence, they'll feel it even through silence. Your calm presence becomes the mirror that challenges their fear. It shows them that connection doesn't have to mean losing themselves. It shows them that love can exist in balance. Your growth also teaches them something vital, what safety actually feels like. Avoidants have lived in survival mode for so long that calmness feels foreign to them. When you embody it, you give them a new emotional experience. You become a symbol of stability rather than intensity. You become the presence that doesn't chase, doesn't demand, doesn't collapse. And in that stillness, they start to soften. They begin to associate you with peace, not pressure. That's when their curiosity awakens, when their silence turns into silent observation again, when they start checking to see how you've evolved. Every time you choose self-respect over reaction, you're teaching them something. Every time you choose inner peace over emotional chaos, you're showing them what love without control looks like. That's the kind of love that draws them closer than any chase ever could, because avoidants don't trust intensity, but they do trust steadiness. And steadiness comes from growth. The irony is that the more you focus on becoming your highest self, the more magnetic you become to them. You shift from being a source of emotional tension to a source of inspiration. They begin to sense that being close to you no longer threatens their freedom. It expands it. And that's when something inside them begins to change. They start to associate connection with healing instead of fear. They may not articulate it, but they feel it deeply. So your growth is not just for you. It's part of the healing of the entire dynamic. You're not waiting for them to change. You're becoming the change. You're not hoping they'll come back. You're rising so high that whether they do or not, your light continues to guide both of you forward. And that light, that calm, that strength is what ultimately reaches them. Silently, powerfully, and irresistibly, compassionate detachment is the art of loving someone without trying to control them, heal them, or rush their process. It's not indifference, it's strength rooted in understanding. When you love an avoidant, this becomes the highest form of love you can practice, because they move in rhythms of closeness and distance, attachment and withdrawal. The more you chase them, the more they retreat. Compassionate detachment is the antidote to that cycle. It says, I see you. I understand your fear, and I love you enough to let you move at your own pace. It's love without demand, presence without pressure. At its core, compassionate detachment requires maturity. It means knowing that your peace doesn't depend on their choices. You can love them deeply, but still remain centered in your own energy. You stop trying to force clarity out of confusion or connection out of silence. You begin to trust that what's meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself. This kind of detachment doesn't close your heart. It opens it wider. Because when you stop needing someone to behave a certain way in order for you to feel okay, you reclaim your personal power. You become love itself, not just a seeker of it. For the avoidant, this form of love is profoundly healing. They've spent their lives running from relationships that felt suffocating, that demanded more than they could give. They equate love with pressure, with losing freedom, with being swallowed by expectations. But when they meet someone who can hold space for them, someone who says, I'm here, but I'm not chasing, it disarms them. It rewires the emotional association they've always had with closeness. Suddenly, love feels like a safe space instead of a trap. Your calm detachment communicates more powerfully than any words ever could. You are free. You are safe. You can come and go, and I will still be grounded in peace. Compassionate detachment doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect or emotional neglect. It means you honor both your boundaries and their process. You don't try to fix them, because you recognize that healing is something only they can choose. You don't plead for their affection, because you understand that forced love isn't real love. You simply hold your vibration steady, warm, open, but unwavering. That steadiness creates a field of safety, and over time the avoidant begins to trust it. They start to sense that they won't lose themselves in your presence. There's a divine principle at play here. What you release in love often returns in truth. When you let someone go with peace instead of pain, you break the energetic chain of fear between you. You show them what unconditional love actually feels like. Not attachment, not control, but acceptance. In that space, transformation happens. The avoidant begins to face their own fears, not because you pushed them, but because your calm energy invites self-reflection. Your stillness becomes a mirror in which they can see their own patterns clearly. Maybe for the first time, this kind of love requires courage. It's not easy to hold space when you crave connection. It's not easy to stay peaceful when silence feels like rejection. But this is where the growth happens for both of you, because compassionate detachment isn't just about them. It's about your evolution too. It teaches you emotional sovereignty. the ability to remain loving and open no matter what others do. It reminds you that real power lies in your ability to love without losing yourself. When you master this, you no longer chase energy, you attract it. You no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. It radiates naturally. And slowly the avoidant begins to feel that your love is safe because it's free. They start checking in, reaching out, testing the waters, and they realize that the space between you isn't emptiness, it's safety. The space you hold with peace becomes the very space where their healing begins. So compassionate detachment becomes the bridge. It allows love to breathe. It lets both hearts expand without fear. And over time, it becomes the force that transforms not only the relationship, but the souls within it. Because when you can love without control and release without resentment, you've touched something divine. You've learned how to love the way the universe loves, freely, fiercely, and without fear. In the end, remember this, love is not about chasing, proving, or fixing. It's about becoming. When you understand the avoidant, you stop fighting their silence and start honoring your own growth within it. You rise in peace, you love with strength, and you let compassion guide your heart instead of fear, because true connection isn't forced, it's felt. Thank you for walking this journey of awareness and healing. May your love be patient, your presence powerful, and your heart always open to transformation.